She thought she had nuked the evidence in time. She was wrong. Somewhere in a burner Facebook account, every screenshot was already saved. Every fabricated story she had told strangers about her own son. Every photo of grandchildren she had no right to post. Her 10 years of weaponized social media were about to evaporate, and she would do it with her own hands. Welcome to Ruthless Retribution. If you love stories like this, hit that subscribe button. It's the easiest way to keep us bringing you more. Tonight's episode is a compilation of 4 mothers-in-law who pushed too far. 4 women who treated their daughters-in-law like accessories. 4 women who thought no one would ever check, ever push back, ever lock the door behind them. They were wrong. Every single one of them lost something they swore they would never lose. A daughter-in-law's silence, a son's loyalty, a grandbaby's birthday, a house key, a free apartment, an audience. So pour the coffee. Get comfortable in your chair. These are the kind of nights you do not want to interrupt. Here is the thing about these stories. The mothers-in-law in them all believed the same lie. They believed that family meant they could not be cut off. They thought blood was a permission slip. They thought a wedding ring on their son's finger gave them rights to the daughter-in-law's wardrobe, the granddaughter's birthday, the postpartum bedroom, the inside of a private package. It does not. And the women who finally said so out loud, in the moments you are about to hear, did not say it loudly. They said it quietly and finally, the kind of quiet that lands harder than a slammed door. Each of these stories ends with a clean consequence. Not a dragged-out feud, not therapy speak. A real, tangible loss for the woman who would not stop. A flight booked early, a door locked for good. A grandbaby pulled out of arms. A Facebook account deleted at midnight. Stay with me through all 4. The last one is the one I cannot stop thinking about. If you have ever been the daughter-in-law in a story like this, you know the feeling. The slow suffocation. The way every Sunday dinner becomes a small audition. The way your husband's face changes the second his mother walks in the room. The way an offhand compliment about your hair has 6 layers of insult buried in it. The way a free babysitter turns into a surveillance camera you cannot turn off. The way her birthday gift to your kid arrives with a receipt taped to the inside of the box. You know the feeling. And you know how rare it is to ever see one of these women actually face it. They usually float through their own mythology forever. They tell their friends they are wonderful grandmas being kept from their grandkids by some cruel daughter-in-law. They get away with it. They get to be the hero of every story they tell. Tonight is different. Tonight the 4 women in these posts got receipts handed back. Tonight the husband stood up. Tonight the daughters-in-law wrote it down, posted it, and the comments backed them up. That is rare. That is cathartic. That is why we are here. The first one is about a mother-in-law who needed an audience more than she needed her son. The OP and her husband had been no contact for a long time before this story even started. They were not loud about it. They did not badmouth her. They did not post about her. They just stopped engaging, the way you do when you finally understand a person will not change. But they did one thing. Every so often, they would quietly check her social media, because the mother-in-law had a history. She liked posting photos of their kids without permission. She liked talking about their family to strangers online. So the OP and her husband would log in, scan her page, and report whatever crossed the line to Facebook. No confrontation, no phone calls, just a paper trail. And then the husband started talking to his dad again. Tentative, slow, trying to repair that one relationship without dragging the rest of it back in. His dad mentioned something offhand on a phone call. He said the mom had been joining estranged parent groups online, those private Facebook groups where mothers go when their adult children stop calling them, where they sit in a warm bath of sympathy and talk about how cruel their daughters-in-law are. The husband and the OP just looked at each other. and they made a burner account. They joined a few of those groups, not to fight, not to comment, just to look. They expected the usual. Photos of the grandkids she had no right to share. They were ready for that. What they were not ready for was the rest. She had been writing fiction, completely fabricated stories about the OP. Genuinely evil stuff, the OP said. Things that had never happened, presented to strangers as fact. The kind of accusations that would stick to a woman if anyone she knew ever saw them. And then she went deeper. The OP's husband had survived real abuse in his life. Things he had not told his closest friends. Private wounds. Things only family knew. His mother had typed all of it out, every detail, and posted it to strangers online. For sympathy. For likes. The members of that group ate it up. They told her she was so brave. They told her she was a good mom in a hard situation. The OP and her husband did not type a word in the comments. Not one. They documented. They screenshotted every post. They reported the photos of the kids. And they closed the burner account and waited. Then came the phone call. The husband and his dad had been talking, slowly rebuilding. The conversation was actually going well. As it was wrapping up, the dad asked something casual. Did the husband want to say a quick hi to his mom? The husband said no. Hard no. The dad was surprised by how flat it was and pushed gently. So the husband told him exactly why. He listed it. The fake stories. The private abuse history posted online. The screenshots. Everything. The OP could hear it happening. The dad processing it out loud. Stunned. The mother-in-law was somewhere in the background of that house, listening to her husband repeat back the things she had buried under fake names and burner privacy settings. And then suddenly, in the middle of that call, the mother-in-law had to go. Right then, she was taking the dogs for a walk at midnight. The OP noted the time difference. It was 9 p.m. where they were. It was midnight where she was. She was walking dogs at midnight, on a phone call going sideways, and the dad was a little flustered too. The dad apologized. He said he would look into it. The husband and the OP hung up. By the end of the weekend, her Facebook was gone. Over a decade of weaponized posts. Photos of the kids. Estranged parent group rants, fabricated stories about her daughter-in-law, detailed posts about her son's private trauma, all of it gone in a single weekend. She almost certainly did it herself before her husband could go looking for the receipts. The OP said she was relieved that outlet was finally gone. She is not naive enough to think a woman like that just stops. People who need an audience that badly always find a new one. Maybe a different platform. Maybe a different lie. But for now, the megaphone is dead. The OP said the midnight dog walk is going to live in her head rent-free forever. A grown woman, caught in real time, hustling out the back door of her own house with a leash in her hand because the truth had finally arrived. And here is the thing the mother-in-law will probably never say out loud. She did not just lose Facebook. She lost the frame she had spent years building. The version of herself where she was the victim. The version where her son was the cruel one. The version where the daughter-in-law was the witch. Strangers had bought it. Her husband had not. And the OP closed the post with a line I keep coming back to. A grown woman, late at night, on a leash with 2 dogs, in a panic, because for the first time in a decade somebody had actually caught her. Most mothers-in-law in these posts never get to that moment. Most of them die having told the same fake story to their friends for 30 years. This one had to live with the look on her own husband's face. That is not nothing. That is the receipt. But that wipe was nothing compared to what came next. The next mother-in-law had it all. A free apartment in the same town as her grandbaby. A new electric bike. A new couch. A new dining table. A credit card with a $10,000 limit and no questions asked. and a granddaughter who had bonded with her so tightly she would cry when she left the house. She had it all, and she threw it away in one screaming afternoon. The OP and his wife had been juggling everything at once. 2 jobs for him, a $230K a year career for her with strict in-office mandates, a 4-year-old son, a 1-year-old daughter, and a midday round-trip drive every workday so the wife could keep her job. They were drowning, and they knew it. So when the wife's mother offered to fly in from out of the country and help with the baby, they said yes. And they did not just say yes. They rolled out the carpet. They got her an apartment at the closest complex to their house. They furnished it. New appliances, a couch she picked, a dining set, pots and pans, a bike to get around because she did not drive, and a credit card. A real credit card. 10,000 limit. No rules. Spend on whatever you need. She came over 4 or 5 days a week, 11 a.m., took the baby for the afternoon, helped cook, helped tidy, helped exist. And the granddaughter adored her. That was the only thing the OP truly cared about. His daughter was happy with grandma. For about 3 months it actually worked.
Are you sure?
The wife got to do her job. The OP got to breathe. The kids got grandma. Everyone was winning for once. Then it started. Quiet at first. Little corrections. Little criticisms. The wife was giving the baby cold water. The wife was not putting enough clothes on the baby. The wife was buying the wrong food. The wife was raising the baby with old wives' tales worth of mistakes. The wife had supposedly already ruined the 4-year-old by sending him to daycare. He had slightly inflamed adenoids, and that, in this woman's mind, was permanent damage caused by her daughter-in-law. It was constant now. Every visit, every meal, every diaper change had a comment attached. And then she got bolder. She started complaining about the credit card. She did not like the lifestyle she was being supported in. She was upset that her daughter and her husband would not, and I quote, help her evade taxes so she could spend the money her father-in-law was sending her from back home. She was upset that the OP and his wife did not buy designer clothes, because in her mind that was the only acceptable place for a credit card to live. A free credit card, with a $10,000 limit. And she was mad about how it was being used. The wife held her tongue. Then one afternoon, the mother-in-law repeated her favorite line, the line about how the 4-year-old was ruined, the line about how the daughter-in-law was going to ruin the baby next, and the wife said very evenly that she did not want to hear that line ever again. What happened next? The OP heard from the next room. The mother-in-law dumped every grievance she had been carrying. The cold water, the food, the clothes, the husband's weight, all of it in a flood of one-sided rage. And then she switched into English so the OP would catch every word, and she said it. Don't ever call me mom, ever again. And then she told her own daughter to book her the first direct flight home. She had been scheduled to stay until the end of June, helping with the baby every day. She was leaving at the start of May. 8 weeks of access to her grandbaby, gone. 8 weeks of free meals at the OP's table, gone. The cushy apartment lease was already expiring. The credit card was going back in the drawer. The bike was staying behind. The 4-year-old grandson was devastated by the news. They had to sit him down and tell him Nana was going home. He cried, because to him the math was simple. Nana, who he loved, was leaving him. He did not know that Nana had picked her own pride over his sister's lunch. He just knew the warmest part of his week had just been cancelled. The OP in the post was not vengeful about it. He was sad. He was sad his daughter would not get to grow up with a grandma. He said he hoped the woman would eventually listen to reason, but the prior years pointed in the opposite direction. So that is what she lost. Daily access to a granddaughter who was about to start talking, the free apartment, the free furniture, the free credit card, the trust of the husband who was now done, the trust of the daughter, who was done with her too. She lost it all because she could not let the wife give the baby a single glass of cold water in peace. And here is the real twist on this one. She did not just walk away with hurt feelings. She walked away from a retirement plan. Think about it. A free apartment in her daughter's town, a free credit card, a daily routine of caring for the grandkid she loved, a son-in-law who, by his own words in the post, genuinely respected her. That is the kind of soft landing most grandmothers in this country would beg for. Most women her age are trying to figure out how to even afford to visit their grandkids twice a year. She had it handed to her on a tray, and she threw the tray on the floor because the wife would not let her run the kitchen. I have read the post 3 times now. The OP is not angry in it. The OP is sad, in that flat way people are sad when they have already done all the crying. He talks about his daughter not getting a grandma. He talks about his son being heartbroken. He says he hopes one day she comes around. The post does not read like a takedown. It reads like a eulogy for the relationship she just killed. And here is the part that stings, if you sit with it. The granddaughter she had bonded with so tightly will not remember her. 1 year old. The hard-baked memory layer is years off. By the time the kid is old enough to ask about Nana, Nana will be a vague name, a photo on a wall, a story told quietly. That is what walking out in a fit of pride looks like at age 50-something. You lose the only piece of the future you were going to be in. And the next story is about the kind of mother-in-law who does not just lose access, she loses the key. This OP came home from work one day and her mother-in-law mentioned something at Christmas dinner that made her freeze in her chair. The mother-in-law was casually referencing items she could not have seen, 2 specific designer handbags. The OP had been collecting them for years. They lived in her wardrobe, in her bedroom, sealed in dust bags and original branded boxes, hidden under books and smaller boxes. Not just out of view, not even out of casual reach. You would have to dig. The OP had not worn them. The husband had not even seen them. They were the kind of bags you save for a particular outfit, and the right outfit had not happened yet. There was no Instagram photo. There was no group chat. There was nothing. But the mother-in-law described them, both of them, in detail, at a Christmas table. And the OP said nothing. Because what do you say? You say nothing and you log it. The next clue came a few weeks later. The OP had ordered a coat online, a blue military-style coat. She opened the package, took one look, decided to return it, and resealed it. Her own husband never saw the coat. It went straight back in the box. The mother-in-law, in a casual conversation about coats, asked the OP very innocently, "Are you returning the blue military one?" The OP felt the floor go cold. There was no way to know about that coat. No photo, no description. The package had been opened and immediately resealed. The only way to know it existed was to have been in the OP's house, in the bedroom, in the wardrobe, opening her mail and trying it on. So that is what had happened. The mother-in-law had been let in to drop off a letter. The letter went, as expected, to its spot by the front door. And then she had gone the rest of the way through the house, through the bedroom, into the wardrobe, through the OP's clothes, into the OP's online order. And when the package did not fit her 3 sizes larger frame, she had repackaged it and put it back exactly where she found it. The OP in the post said it lightly. She said she found some of the mother-in-law's hair on a few of her dresses. That was the line that stayed with me. Not the bags, not the coat. The hair on the dresses. This woman had been trying on her daughter-in-law's clothes in her daughter-in-law's bedroom while the daughter-in-law was at work. And then a few months later, the mother-in-law announced she was coming over to supervise a tradesman one day while the OP and her husband were out. The OP said no. The husband said no. The mother-in-law said it was fine, she would just let herself in with her key. That was the last sentence of the conversation. The OP politely informed her that there was no point coming over because she was now using both locks and the mother-in-law only had a key for one. The mother-in-law accused her of being treated like a criminal, as if a woman who tries on her daughter-in-law's clothes in her own bedroom is being unfairly accused. But here is where the story gets beautiful. The OP and her husband were already moving in just over a month, a new house. They had not told the mother-in-law about it. Not the address, not the closing date, not the floor plan, not even the city neighborhood. They had handled the lock changes, the cameras, the security plan, all of it handled in private. And the mother-in-law's emergency key for the new house? She is not getting one. That was decided long before the lock fight. The new house has external cameras and internal cameras downstairs. There will be no letter drop-offs. There will be no key under the mat. There will be no trying on coats on lazy afternoons. Every visit will require an invitation. The mother-in-law does not know any of this yet. She is still arguing about being punished for something that happened months ago. She still feels like the victim. She still feels like she is the one being treated badly. She is going to find out, eventually, that the door does not open, that her key fits a lock that no longer exists, that the people inside have moved on without telling her, that the grandkids she expected to drop in on her own schedule, with no notice, are now in a house she has never seen. That is a quieter loss than the first two. No public exposure, no screaming flight booking, just a door that closes one Tuesday and never opens to her again. And that is exactly the kind of consequence a woman like that fears most. Not a scene, not a fight, just the slow, polite absence of an invitation. Think about how that lands. She wakes up in the same town she has lived in for decades. She has her keys, her habits, her certainty that she still belongs in her son's life. She drives over one Sunday, key in hand, and the address she pulls up to is a stranger's house. She calls her son. He says they moved. He says he forgot to tell her. He says they will let her know when she can come visit, and then he hangs up. That is the moment. That is when she understands. She is no longer family with running access. She is now family with strict visiting hours. The OP knew exactly what she was doing when she handled that move quietly. She was not trying to humiliate the woman. She was trying to make a clean break. She did not want a scene. She did not want a fight. She wanted a door her mother-in-law had never opened, and she got it. But the next mother-in-law lost something faster than any of them. She lost it in a hospital room. The OP was a first-time mom. She had just delivered her baby girl after a 22-hour labor that ended in a fever and emergency complications. The baby was in the NICU. The OP was alone in a small room, drugged, exhausted, recovering. Her support people, by hospital rules, were already capped at 2. Her husband and her twin sister. The mother-in-law knew the rule. The mother-in-law did not care. Strike 1. Within the hour of the baby being born, the mother-in-law had somehow walked into the OP's recovery room. The OP was naked, drugged out of her mind, running a fever. The mother-in-law went straight past her, straight to the baby in the bassinet, picked her up, took a stack of photos, and never once acknowledged the woman in the bed who had just spent 22 hours getting that baby into the world. Strike 2. Endless calls and texts. Demands for updates. Demands for photos. Photos to show coworkers. Photos to send to friends. While the baby was still in the NICU. The OP would dim her phone, get woken up, dim it again, get woken up, and every text came with a free medical opinion, decades-old anecdotes served up as advice, as though every NICU nurse, every neonatologist, every modern specialist had been waiting for the mother-in-law's 2 cents on a baby they had never examined. Strike 3 is the one that ended her. The OP and her husband were finally inside the NICU. 2 visitors only. They had pulled themselves together and were having a real moment with their daughter. A nurse came in and said, in that careful nurse voice, that Grandma was waiting outside. One of them would have to leave so Grandma could come in. The OP shot her husband a look. The husband left, and the OP assumed reasonably that he was going to send his mother back to the recovery room, or to the cafeteria, or to a parking lot. Anywhere but here. But the mother-in-law walked anyway. So the OP, exhausted, sat with this woman next to her newborn in the NICU and tried to make small talk. She told her about the labor, the way her water had broken 18 hours before contractions started, the way she had waited several hours, hoping to progress on her own before finally agreeing to the medication. The doctor walked in mid-conversation, gave the OP a real medical update on the baby's condition, walked back out, and the mother-in-law turned to her in that recovery room 4 feet from the incubator and said the line out loud. She said, "I bet if you had just taken the medicine and gotten her here sooner, she probably would not be dealing with any of this." In a NICU, to a woman who had not slept in 2 days, about a baby that was still fighting. The OP wrote in her post that she had already been replaying every minute of that labor, every choice, every wait, beating herself up on a loop, wondering if it was her fault, wondering if she had traumatized her own child, crying every hour about it. And her mother-in-law walked into that room and dropped a fresh layer of guilt on the pile. When the OP got back to recovery, she told her husband what was said. What happened next was something the OP described as one of the most satisfying moments of her life. Her husband cussed his mother out, right there, in front of the OP. He told her to pack her things. He told her to leave the hospital. And he told her in plain words why she was leaving. She left. The calls and texts started immediately. Every one of them got silenced one by one. Phone on Do Not Disturb. Husband not answering. OP not answering. The mother-in-law had access cut off in the middle of her own daughter-in-law's hospital stay. The baby pulled through. She is on the up and up. She is going home. The mother-in-law is not going to be in those first photos. Not the ones the parents will keep. Not the ones the kid will see in 15 years and ask about. She talked her way out of the most important week of her life as a grandma in 3 strikes, and her son canceled the rest of the game. That is the part of these stories that nobody seems to learn. The grandbabies do not remember the labor. They do not remember the diaper changes. They do not remember the lullabies. They remember who was around when they were old enough to remember. And every one of these mothers-in-law, every single one, took herself out of that group photo with her own mouth. The 4th one in particular still gets me. The OP wrote that whole post from a hospital bed, drugged, hormonal, 22 hours of labor in her body, a baby in another room with tubes in her. And in the middle of all that, this woman, who was supposed to be her grandma's support system, walked into the most fragile day of her life and tried to sell her a guilt trip about a medical decision in front of an actual doctor. There is no version of that move that comes back from itself. You can apologize for a comment at Thanksgiving. You can apologize for a fight at a wedding. You cannot apologize for telling a brand new mother that her medical choices put her own baby in the NICU. That sentence sticks. That sentence is the kind of thing the OP will tell her therapist for the next 10 years. That sentence is the reason her grandbaby never sees her again. And the husband, in that post, finally understood. He had been a sweet, conflict-averse man up to that point. He had let his mother get away with strike 1. He had let her get away with strike 2. But strike 3 was the last one. He did not call. He did not ask for an apology. He just cut her out of the moment, in real time, and silenced his phone. So here is what we have. 4 women. 4 versions of the same mistake. The first one needed an audience more than she needed her son. She got Facebook taken down by her own hands at midnight while her husband listened on speakerphone. The second one needed a perfect grandkid more than she needed a real one. She got a flight home 8 weeks early and a grandson who cried when he found out. The third one needed control more than she needed an invitation. She got a new house she will never see and a key that fits a lock that no longer exists. The fourth one needed to be right more than she needed to be there. She got cussed out in a hospital corridor and silenced before her granddaughter even came home from the NICU. None of them lost loudly. That is the thing about real consequences. They are not screaming matches. They are doors closing in the middle of dinner, flights moved to the morning, phones on silent, locks changed without an announcement, Facebook accounts disappearing at midnight while the dog gets a walk. Karma does not always show up with a courtroom. Sometimes it shows up with a key change, a phone setting, and a quiet plane ticket. And the families on the other side of those doors, they keep going. The babies grow up, the birthdays happen. The new houses fill with people who were actually invited in. The woman who used to be in the photos becomes a story told to a therapist one afternoon and then put away for good. The lesson, if there is one, is this: family is not a permission slip. Blood is not a credential. A wedding ring on a son's finger is not a deed to his wife's wardrobe, his daughter's labor, his grandson's birthday party. Those are all things you get invited into. And the second you start treating an invitation like a right, you start losing it. These 4 women are still alive, still texting, still in their cars, still, in some cases, posting reels online about how unfair their daughters-in-law are. They will not change. The OPs in these posts are not waiting for them to change. What the OPs are doing is what every healthy person eventually does. They are redirecting toward the husbands who finally stood up for them, toward the parents who actually showed up, toward the friends who came to the hospital, toward the kids who deserve a calmer house, toward Sundays without the one woman who ruined every meal. That is the quiet, beautiful part. The retribution is not the screenshot. It is not the deleted account. It is not the canceled flight. The retribution is the life that grows after she is no longer in it. Thanks for watching Ruthless Retribution. If this story was worth your time, drop a like and hit subscribe. It genuinely helps us grow. See you in the next one.